Aloha mai kako. Thank you all for being here today. It is our press conference, joint House and Senate Republicans gathering to speak about Hawaii's housing crisis. We'll be talking about 3 separate bills today. To open us up, I'd like to invite up Peter Savio, an expert on our local housing market, to talk about the problems of housing here in Hawaii and what the current administration is doing and not doing to solve it.
Thank you. I think it's important to understand Hawaii has a critical housing crisis, and we all seem to understand that, but we do not understand the solution. A lot of the bills that are being introduced by the Democrats have been introduced over and over for the last 60 years, and they failed. And they will continue to fail because they do not understand the problem. The problem is not building homes. We're good at building homes. In my lifetime, we've built over 400,000 homes. 50% of them have sold for under 200,000. Another 25% sold under 500,000. And only in the last few years have prices gone above that. The reality is most of these homes sold originally in the 60s, 20, 30, 40, 50,000. Today, all of them are up near $1 million or more. Our problem is not building homes. Our problem is controlling the demand. It is not a supply problem. The more homes we build, the worse the housing situation will get because more and more mainland and foreign buyers will come in to buy. We have to protect our local buyers. We have to get affordable housing. And building is not the solution. It's laws that will restrict the foreign buyer, will restrict the mainland buyer, and will give us local guys a chance to enter the market. Our pricing has to be in the $400,000 to $450,000 range, is what our wages say we should pay. Mainland buyers are paying $1.1 million, $1.2 million, and $1.3 million. We cannot compete. We have to have restrictions and protections for the local buyers. And I believe that's what the Republican Party is suggesting today, the restrictions that will start the process. Realize a lot of times we're doing 1 or 2 changes because it's supposed to solve the housing crisis. It's shabai. This is a serious problem. It is a complex problem. It involves 20, 30, 40 major structural changes to make it work for the people of Hawaii. Now I'll introduce the senator or representative who will cover the bills.
The first bill I want to talk about is House Bill 633. This was introduced under the House Republican caucus package. It was carried over to this session, and this establishes a local housing market that is tied to Hawaii state residents' incomes and not the global economy, thus providing housing options that are affordable relative to wages for residents here in Hawaii. And what this does is we want to create a separate local housing market so that when locals buy a house, they buy it at the area median income. When they sell their property in 20, 30 years, they still have equity, they still make money, but they sell it at the area median income that they purchased it at for local families. So it establishes housing and keeps it affordable into perpetuity. So that's House Bill 633. The next bill Senator Awal will talk about will relate to outside forces.
Aloha. So we actually have 5 bills. 2 of them are here. So I'll talk about the biggest 2 that we have. SB 2617. This bill is the one that would prohibit foreigners from buying all property in the state of Hawaii. Senator Keho Kalole, we're working with him, the CPN chair. He has told us that he's going to schedule it for a hearing. Prior to that hearing, there's some details that have to be worked out. The fear is that this bill will be deemed unconstitutional by our Attorney General. I can talk more about that if you have questions why they think that way. This bill came from Florida. It was passed there. The second bill, out of these 5, I'll just go over these 2 again, is SB 299. This one would be a moratorium. Something different this session that we didn't have last session is the governor's emergency proclamation declaring our housing emergency. And so it's our belief that you may have heard me say it before, but if we're in a housing emergency and we have a shortage, then why should anybody else cut in line of local people who need it here, especially on Maui. And so this one would establish a moratorium on property sales to foreign buyers.
So the bottom line is simply this: locals first. Locals first, locals first. I think we all know the statistic that there are more Native Hawaiians who now live on the US continent than here in Hawaii, and that's because of harmful policies passed by this building. And when they talk about addressing affordable housing, there is no security or assurance to make sure that these houses stay affordable into perpetuity. And so that's what we want to address here, and also cut the outside forces from buying up property. At this time, we'll open it up for questions for any of us.
So last year, this bill is what we really wanted to do last year. But last year, when I talked to the Attorney General, we have an Attorney General who looks at these types of legislations really on one side of the spectrum. If we had a different type of Attorney General with a different perspective, it could be a different state. So that's how key that position is, that people really don't understand from the outside. The Attorney General last year, there was about 14, 15 other states that had already passed a ban on foreigners buying agricultural land. We took that to the Attorney General last year, and she said, on her belief, even though these other states passed it, it's unconstitutional. She wouldn't back it here. So that's the kind of hill or mountain we're up against in Hawaii. You know, it's that particular bill with the ag, it's up to like what, 24, 25 states now have passed it. So a bunch jumped on last session. So we're going to keep pushing that and see if the Attorney General would change her tune. But all it comes down to is a piece of paper, her testimony that says this is unconstitutional, because if they hear that over here, they're going to kill it. And so this one person has so much power over the state of Hawaii and our housing position. You know, to me, we should have a new one, but I'm just one in that body.
In terms of restricting sales, another possibility is to change our zoning code so you have owner-occupant residential zoning or apartment zoning, owner-occupant only, because that would restrict it to the local buyers. It also helped to solve our housing crisis and develop a market that is free of investors, speculators, bed and breakfast, Airbnb, because you have to be an owner-occupant. We have to create housing that cares about the locals, not the mainland buyers, not the foreign buyers. We have to put a stop to this.
A footnote to the local market. Peter has told you that, hey, basically this is international, it's overseas, it's the mainland, but we do have a local market. I want to remind you what UHERO, the University of Hawaii Research Office, said. The low-hanging fruit for the housing crisis is the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. They have the land, they don't have the wherewithal economically, the budget. But the point is, as the governor mentioned in his State of the State, 44% of the Hawaii residents are Alice families, 63% are Hawaiian families. If that is the low-hanging fruit, this is one of the things if you're not Hawaiian, you can't buy. So what Peter is talking about, all the big money outside of Hawaii, of course, that's another issue that we're going to resolve. But we've got one right here that is Hawaiians from Hawaiian land, and it's DHHL. Please keep that in mind.
That concludes our press conference. This is once again the Republican response to Hawaii's housing crisis. Mahalo.